Introduction. National cultures vary. A nation of any great size is home to multiple subcultures. The United States, though still young, are already a rich tapestry of people with many different backgrounds and stories. Our national motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one, certainly references the disparate states that join together to form a federal government. However, the motto is also descriptive of a defining trait at the root of what might be called American culture. We are a people who value unity. We see ourselves as unified, for example, around certain core principles, even while we recognize our various important differences. America the Beautiful. Americans, in spite of our great diversity of thought, aspiration, and heritage, have been known abroad as self-assured, outspoken, sometimes even brash. We are risk-takers, creators, optimists, and doers. Typically, we are, or have been, confident in our identity and heritage as Americans. At the same time, we stand out in much of the world for a certain moral sensitivity rooted in a strong conviction that truth exists, that its pursuit is good, and that justice rests upon something more than mere societal consensus. This moral undercurrent is not confined to Americans of any ethnic group or national origin. It crosses all superficial boundaries. The United States are among the most church-going societies in the world, and more Americans unapologetically believe in God than the people of most other nations. Our culture is neither original to this land, nor is it descended singularly from that of any other. This is to say, in culture as in ethnic heritage, we are a hybrid people. The term hybrid alone, however, fails to capture the essence of Americanism. Blending every culture in the world and treating every idea and proposition as though it were equally valid and deserving of elevation would yield nothing even vaguely resembling Americanism. Nor would it amount to anything even vaguely resembling goodness. One distinctive feature of American culture, influenced undoubtedly by our substantial biblical and Judeo-Christian heritage, is our widespread belief that certain ideas are true and or morally good, while others are objectively false and or morally wrong. Americans' general belief that truth exists and can be found has led to the creation of an environment conducive to its open pursuit. This environment has been characterized, for example, by our fierce protection of freedom of speech and conscience, freedom of the press, the presumption of innocence, the equality of all people before God, and a consequent striving for equality of all people before the laws of the land. It also underpins the spirit of invention and scientific inquiry that has given rise to so many technological innovations that have in turn benefited humanity. These include electricity, the light bulb, the telephone, powered flight, computers, the internet, and various medical advances and discoveries. The United States are a nation, in other words, whose foundation is a set of common affirmations and a promise. Our identity is not ethnic because we do not have a single ethnic origin. What we hold in common is a commitment to the principles enumerated in the Declaration of Independence and applied to government in the United States Constitution, which established a system of rule by the people that includes many checks and balances to protect against tyranny. The sovereign in the United States is the people. Are American principles exceptional? Absolutely. However, they are not so because they are somehow particularly or uniquely American, but rather because they are true and good. The United States are, or have been, good because we affirm, in word, with aspiration and deed, propositions that align with objective truth and justice. Many nations in history, ancient and modern, have attempted to claim that God was on their side, but they got it backward. The United States were founded in a humble but hopeful intention to be on God's side. American principles have always been upheld by those who have taken up a position at the very center of basic Americanism, that is, a position in alignment with the U.S. Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and Bill of Rights. These were aspirational documents that did not immediately reflect the reality of the situation among the states at the time they were adopted. Rather, they charted a course forward, navigating by certain fixed points, among which was the proposition that all people are created equal. All unalienable rights are negative, that is, they indicate the limits of what government can do, and never what government must provide. It was through direct appeal to the fixed points declared in these documents that the United States, a sovereign and self-governing nation, abolished their own pre-existing condition of slavery 89 years, 5 months, and 2 days after the ratification of the Declaration of Independence, by means of a costly civil war, and over the obstinate objections of Democrats. And it is through appeal to these fixed points that she has made many other course corrections along the way. 2 main arguments. This book is divided into 2 sections, and also makes 2 related arguments. The first section and argument, comprising 15 short chapters, is a sharp critique of the Democratic Party. The second section is a general discussion that includes a focus upon the semantics of the colors red and blue, including my assertion that the Republicans are properly the blue party and the Democrats are the red. Until the mid-1980s, political maps in the United States were generally drawn with the Democrat states colored red and the Republican ones blue. Then, in the late 1980s, US media elites switched the colors on maps to red for Republican and blue for Democrat. I am convinced that this change was a calculated manipulation, a sleight-of-hand move made for reasons that I will discuss at greater length in Chapter 18. Over time, this change took root, and terms like red state became synonymous with Republican majority states, and blue state with those under the control of Democrats. But Democrats today are as red as ever, and Republicans are not. I argue that it is time to change back the colors. What does the term Democrat imply? Words are not the realities to which they pertain. They are symbols, and as such, they can signify different things to different people and in different contexts. This fact is true of colors, as mentioned just above, and also of labels such as Republican or Democrat. When a person identifies with a political party, however, it is reasonable to conclude that they at least generally agree with the party's basic principles. So, when I learn that people are Democrats, I assume that they support racism, have a stunted or warped sense of justice, affirm or excuse many kinds of immorality, place politics above the safety and well-being of children, are prone to magical thinking instead of rational and scientific engagement with the world, are prone to resentment rather than joy at the success of others, believe that the end justifies the means, feel that they have a right to control others' lives, are careless with data, and are economically illiterate. I sometimes learn over time that particular Democrats lack some of these traits. Maybe they do seem to care about children, or perhaps they seem to believe in justice. Of course, if someone lacks too many of the traits, I am left wondering, why is this person a Democrat, since he or she diverges from the party on so many of its core priorities and objectives? The partisan divide in the United States is not entirely about misunderstanding. Increasingly, Americans have become committed to divergent beliefs about what is right and what is wrong, what constitutes justice, the definition of love, what it means to be kind, what is good and praiseworthy, and an array of other important topics. So as I present my case, you may wish to consider whether you agree with what I assert to be good and true and fair. Perverse incentives, power and money. In considering who really drives certain societal problems, it may be helpful to notice who benefits from these problems existing in the first place. Which major US political party benefits politically and financially from racism, benefits from moral decline and social chaos, benefits from dividing people into identity groups that are angry at each other and focused on differences rather than common dreams and goals, benefits from a massive and growing number of poor people who feel as though they have no opportunity for the future, benefits from the destruction that a culture of sexual promiscuity brings to young people's lives and futures, would be in trouble if people left welfare programs to become successful, stable, and self-sufficient, benefits when people covet their neighbor's property, benefits from mass shootings, and benefits if kids are dumbed down and set on a path to a destructive lifestyle and poverty. We will discuss many of these topics further in the coming chapters, but if you answered the Democratic Party to all of the above, I believe you are correct. Now consider another list. Which political party benefits when people start to see themselves as Americans and as brothers and sisters? Racism and its expressions in American society actually recede. Justice is done, and everyone is treated fairly. Kids of both sexes and all backgrounds and circumstances do well in school, get a good grasp of history, and develop strong critical thinking skills. Violent crime and property crime go down. People love their neighbors and take joy in the success of others. Only those truly at the end of their rope access government safety net programs, and then only for as short a time as absolutely necessary. Americans preserve a strong sense of right and wrong, aspire to do what is right, and commend others who do the same. If you answered the Republican Party to all of the above, again, I believe you are correct. In fact, if many of these things occurred, it would have a devastating effect on the Democratic Party's power and financial base. And Democrat leadership and strategists know it. Thinking about these questions may help you understand why things are really not as they seem. Incentives drive results. The fact that the Democratic Party would be in serious trouble without the existence and growth of racism and injustice gives them an incentive to try to preserve or even perpetuate those things. Of course, they try to do so without looking as though that's what they are doing. But astute people understand what is going on. On group identity. The United States were founded upon the affirmation of the individual. Every individual, rooted in the proposition that certain rights, because they are given by God, belong to all people. Your rights, the American founders declared, belong to you because you are a human being created by God and in His image. Virtually everything good that has happened in the history of our country has flowed in some way from this proposition. The proposition, it should be observed, is deeply humanizing and intensely unifying, because it recognizes and upholds the inherent worth and agency of every single individual. The proposition of individual rights also militates against the idea of group identity as the determining factor in anyone's fate. Yes, you may face challenges, some of which will come in the form of ignorance or injustice at the hands of others. But you belong here, and no matter who you are, in this life you can overcome what comes your way. Political party affiliation is a form of group identity. Is political tribalism therefore inherently un-American? Absolutely not. We form all sorts of associations that reflect our varied interests, including civic groups, churches or synagogues or mosques, charities, sports teams or clubs, cause-oriented organizations, professional or learned societies, and yes, political parties. The point is that all of these are voluntary affiliations. You are not forced into any of them merely because of traits with which you were born. That is the important distinction. Your identity and future are not determined by your sex, your race, or your physical traits. You can choose which way to go. Roadmap. Chapters 1 to 15 deal with different manifestations of a sickness. Just as one sickness may have many different symptoms, or one symptom may be the cumulative result of several underlying conditions, so there is overlap between different Democrat policies and their root causes. For example, I cite Democrats' love affair with Planned Parenthood as evidence of their racial bigotry, but also of their violence, immorality, tendency to infantilize, and abusiveness toward women and children. So, Planned Parenthood must be mentioned in multiple chapters. In the final chapters, I discuss the colors red and blue, and then I pull back for some high-level analysis before concluding with a summary of the grotesque carnage wrought by communism everywhere it has been implemented over the past century and a half. Communist ideologues have had the United States in their sights for a century. They have played a long game and are now moving the pieces into place to subjugate us all to their slave system. The Democratic Party is the vehicle they intend to drive to their hoped-for glorious revolution. A note on style. Throughout this book, unless quoting another source, I employ a convention of referencing races that are generally known by color designations that do not describe the true skin tone with quotation marks, as in white and black. The description brown does not generally receive quotation marks because it is the name of an actual color describing a shade of skin. I understand that there are other standards in our society today. My purpose, as with so much else, is to invite reflection.